First this morning, the renewed interest in the O.J. Simpson trial nearly 22 years after the murders of Nicole Brown Simpson and Ron Goldman. Now a new 5-part documentary for ESPN seeks to explain Simpson's acquittal and put it in the context of years of racial injustice and police brutality in L.A.'s African-American community. The series is called O.J. Made in America, and it also reveals new perspectives about O.J.'s life from some of his friends.
We were at Bob Kardashian's mansion in Beverly Hills. OJ's playing tennis and everybody's having a good time. I'm Black Power, man. I don't want to be around these people, right? Because they're all phony to me. I said, OJ, look around you, man. These people don't care nothing about us. Just a few years ago, these guys would have drove down Fillmore in their Rolls Royce, and they wouldn't have even spit on us.
Ezra Edelman is the filmmaker of O.J. Made in America, and Gil Garcetti served as the Los Angeles County District Attorney during the trial. Gentlemen, good morning. It's good to have you here.
Nice to have you both here.
Maybe this question should go for Ezra, but actually I'm going to ask you, Gil. You didn't do an interview for 20-plus years. Why now? What did he say to convince you? Why did it seem important?
It was this man who convinced me. He kept telling me his ideas for the film. It wasn't just about the trial. It went deeper than that. It went about how America treats young boys who seemingly have this incredible athletic ability, and begin to be placed on a pedestal. Hey, I am great. I can get away with anything, and too often they do. And then the second element is the one you mentioned, the racial aspect of it, especially important in Los Angeles, but it's nationwide.
Ezra, this is one of the cases that everybody thinks they know everything about. Tell us about some of the new and revealing things that are in this documentary. We both followed this trial, as did a lot of people. One of which I thought was interesting, when he lost the $33 million civil case, you have footage of family and friends backing up trucks as they're basically hiding some of O.J.'s assets, things like that.
Well, it's impossible to know what is actually new. There is sort of the last part of the doc, part 5, is that period in time after the trial, which I think, frankly, no one really focuses on more than anything else. I feel like after the acquittal in 1995, we all had OD'd on O.J., and since then we just forgot about him. And so I think anyone who, and from what I've heard from the response so far, people watch the last hour and a half of the doc and they say, I had no idea any of this happened.
Gil, you have made some headlines recently because of this interview, because you said that, I think, tell me if I'm not getting the quote right, but that Marcia Clark had not been your first choice to prosecute the case, that another assistant district attorney, Bill Hodgman, was. So that may just be a statement of the facts. Let me ask you point blank. Did you think the prosecutors, your prosecutors, did a good job on this case?
Well, I think they did an excellent job.
Did they bungle the case, as some people think?
Marcia Clark is a fabulous lawyer. Chris Darden is a wonderful, wonderful, excellent lawyer. Bill Hodgman was the person that I picked, but when he had his heart problem, that's it. Yeah. You know, here's the team.
You didn't mean to slam Marcia Clark's prosecution of the case.
Not at all. You know, she's a wonderful person, intense person, obviously, but a very good trial lawyer.
This documentary goes in one particular place that's of interest to me. Inside that famous white Bronco chase, Ezra, you actually have interviews with Detective Lang, I believe. Take us into those moments. For us watching, for Critical Mass watching on TV, we think we see a suicidal O.J. driving somewhere with AC, with cash, but that may not be the case.
It may not be the case, but it's also impossible to know what was going on inside O.J.'s mind that day. And I think for me, in trying to sort of document that day, it was as important to document the experiences of everyone around that day, from Gil, who you see in the chase when watching, you know, as a press conference, watching it on TV off air, to the police and the SWAT guys who went to his house, to Zoe Tor, or Bob Tor, who was the helicopter pilot who found O.J. I think part of what I was hoping to do was like show this from a 360-degree perspective of those on the ground that day, and that's not something that...
You think he was really suicidal in the car?
I have no idea.
The themes of race are shot through the documentary because they're shot through the case. I mean, in terms of how O.J. embraced race in the middle of this trial, and you talk about, Ezra, that transition, and then also the backdrop of L.A. Let's talk about O.J. Simpson first and how he came along in terms of his relationship with the black community, and then it's interesting to hear your perspective, Gil, on that.
I mean, look, O.J. came from the projects in Ventura Hill, you know, in a black neighborhood, and I think his life was fundamentally transformed when he went to USC, where Gil went to school as well. You know, it was a white enclave, this bubble next to black Los Angeles. And the fact is, right there is where he became acculturated. And 2 years after that, he found himself living in Bel Air, then in Brentwood. And because of his desire for fame that he talked about since he was a kid, you know, that thrust him into the arms of white America.
And Gil, you mentioned that one of the reasons you wanted to be involved in this particular documentary because it does really set the case in the context of L.A.
It is. It's not just about L.A., it's an entire nation in terms of the race relations. As the district attorney, my job was to assist the prosecutors. Do we have enough evidence to prove the defendant guilty beyond a reasonable doubt? But it was much deeper, much bigger than that. It was about race. I don't know if anyone's told you the story about me reaching out to President Carter, but you know, part of my job was to be prepared for every eventuality in the case. Guilty, not guilty, you know, hung jury. We expected a hung jury, didn't expect a guilty verdict. It certainly didn't expect a not guilty. At least I didn't until once we had the jury, things were a little iffy. But it was President Carter who was like slammed me in the stomach when I said, what can I say to the people about this? When he said, Gil, they're coming back not guilty. And it's not because he didn't do it. We all know he did it. But it's because of the injustice in the black community that's taken place.
So it's a theme that the film certainly does explore. Ezra Edelman, Gil Garcetti, good to have you both here. Thank you. You can catch OJ Made in America this Saturday on ABC and then the entire series on ESPN beginning next.
Hello, Today fans. Thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking that button down there and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives.